If you want to write stories your readers will love, there are 3 things you need to do. Understand storytelling principles, see how other writers have applied the principles, and of course, then you have to use them in your own work. Here on the Story Nerd podcast, our goal is to demystify story theory. We'll help you with the first 2 steps so that you can get started with the third. My name is Valerie Francis. I am a writer and a story editor, and I teach women who are writing in all genres how stories work so they can finish the books faster and without frustration.
And I'm Melanie Hill, editor, poet, and author of middle grade novel Jet Cooper, and I help writers identify and solve their story problems.
For today's What Went Wrong episode, Melanie chose Jason Bourne. This 2016 film was directed by Paul Greengrass from a screenplay by Paul Greengrass and Christopher Rouse, and it's based on the characters by Robert Ludlum. Of course, there will be spoilers, because we can't talk about the movie without talking about the movie, but I guarantee it's just not going to matter this week. And as always, we would love it if you could help other writers find our show simply by leaving a rating and review. Apple Podcast listeners, you can do it from your phone. Go to the show's landing page, scroll to the bottom, click the stars, maybe pop in a word or two. That's all you have to do. It's real easy. And thank you in advance. We really appreciate it. And if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. All right, Miss Melanie. Jason Bourne.
And there's a very good reason, right, why I picked this for What Went Wrong.
There's many good reasons. Many.
Yes, many. Right.
Take it away.
All right. Well, I remember watching this movie in the cinema, and it was one of the first movies where I could pinpoint exactly why it didn't work. So I remember coming out and saying to my husband, that wasn't very good. He said no. And then we together started to list off things that we thought were not very good about it. And that's really disappointing for me because, as you know, Valerie knows, spy stories and those sorts of things they're kind of my jam. I really enjoy the intrigue and things like that with espionage. But Jason Bourne, everything that was wrong with it ranged from very small detail, like having a mobile phone in an ops room, right? That's just cardinal sin number 1, and right through to the logic of the whole scenario. It was just fully blah. Anyway, it's a very academic word that I've used to say. Anyway, I enjoyed most of the Bourne movies, particularly the ones with Jason Bourne in them. And I used, if you remember, the Bourne identity in Season 3, Episode 2 as a great example of how sequences work and how to use sequences to tell your story and to escalate tension and to escalate interest in the story. So I was really disappointed with this one. So this episode, I'm going to work through my pet peeves from small to large. And I want those of you who are writing a series to pay attention to the problems in this movie, because this is the 5th installment, but the 4th movie with Bourne in it. So there's one that doesn't have Bourne in it. It has Jeremy Renner in it as a sort of a spin-off type of movie that was really bad as well. But anyway, this is one with Matt Damon as Jason Bourne, and it's the 4th one. So there are mistakes in this movie that I think are really easy to avoid, especially if you know, and you should know by the 4th installment, the protagonist's world, and especially if you stick to the logic that you've already established in the preceding books or the preceding stories. Now, I've already mentioned the phone in the ops room, and this made me mad because to me, this is a plot convenience point rather than a real understanding of the intelligence world and working and what it's like to work in a secure environment. Now, they get this right in the other movies, and so to get it wrong in this one seems to be a bit of a, I suppose, lack of attention to detail or an assumption that your audience is going to go with you. So I find that small detail actually quite just frustrating. Now, this is a world where Heather, the main antagonist, hacks, tracks, and cuts her way through the digital landscape to find Nikki and then Bourne. She knows how vulnerable the digital world is, and yet she takes her mobile phone into a highly sensitive area that would have a minimum security level of secret, I guess. But that's what it would have as a minimum. Now, if you've ever sat down and had a conversation about going on holiday and then received ads about your said destination in the sidebars of your computer, you know that your phone is listening to you, whether you've got the microphone on or not. If you have your kids' numbers in apps that tell you where they are 24 hours a day, you know how your phone can track you or others. This is really basic stuff. So imagine working for the CIA, heading up the cyber ops division and ignoring simple tradecraft, and then being completely surprised when tech is used against you in the end. Like, it just beggars belief for me. Now, this leads me to the antagonists. Now, I'll start with Heather Lee. As I mentioned, she's the head of cyber ops. And yes, she is established as a fantastic tracker and hacker, but she is not motivated by anything that makes sense. Nothing. She reads a psych file about Jason Bourne that suggests he could be convinced to rejoin the CIA. So she decides that she's going to do it. We don't know why exactly. Don't know why. Don't know what she would do with him if she did convince him. What program? What is he going to do? Now, sure, Bourne is excellent and he is skilled, but he's an assassin. She's the head of cyber ops. She kind of supports the CIA's director's latest Black Ops program, but she's not Black Ops and she's not actually directly linked to whatever it is that they're doing. Now, the antagonist's logic and the motivations behind their actions create tension in a movie because the viewer empathizes to a degree with the antagonist if they understand why they're doing what they're doing. And when they empathize with the antagonist and the protagonist, it creates a level of conflict, which is actually really powerful to pull your reader through a story. Now, when there's no tension between competing motivations, then the movie falls flat. Another example of no tension comes from the relationship between Heather and Dewey. So Heather doesn't like Dewey, who's the CIA director, and she wants him gone. But that's sort of is revealed at the end of the movie. Now, I fully get where Heather's coming from because Dewey is an incredibly unlikable character. And he made a fool of Heather when they're on their op in London. But that is after she tried to outmaneuver him by proposing that she can bring Bourne back to the CIA. And that is something that Dewey adamantly does not want. So it's clear that she's going to be in his sights. And so that kind of thing doesn't really work well in this situation. It's illogical in this situation to me. Dewey wants Bourne killed out of revenge for closing down the CIA's Black Ops programs like Treadstone and Blackbriar. And Dewey is super invested in these programs because he believes that they make the US a safer place. This is a reason, but it's a very cliched reason. There's no morality that's linked to his own personal cause that gives that any real substance. So there is nothing that explains why or how involved Dewey was in the other Black Ops programs. He just kind of wants Jason Bourne dead. There's nothing more to it. There's no inner reason or backstory reason for him to actually want that to happen, which again is very cardboard in my opinion. The other weird thing is that Bourne has no idea about Dewey's plan to get the tech company Deep Dream to create a backdoor so that the CIA can monitor everyone on the social media platform. Now, apparently, this is the new way for Black Ops to operate. And Dewey is just a bad guy who's just bad for the sake of it. Now, his only grievance is that Bourne shut down the other Black Ops programs. And these programs in the previous movies have been proven to be corrupt and used as a killer for hire program by previous directors or deputy directors of the CIA. So again, there's no moral, there's nothing about Dewey that gives him a level of complexity as a character. He's just kind of bad. So there, between Heather and Dewey, there are two completely unempathetic antagonists with no serious or logical motivation. Then we come to the asset. Dewey's own personal assassin. The asset wants Bourne's scalp because Bourne put the asset out of a job by revealing the CIA's unauthorized Black Ops programs. However, without any irony at all, it's revealed that the asset assassinated Bourne's father by faking a terrorist attack so that David Webb, Bourne's original name and original identity, will join the Treadstone program. Yes, even for a big action movie, this is starting to get really ridiculous. Now, I summarised the two biggest problems with the antagonists as, no empathy is created for any of them. And secondly, and the most important in my opinion, is that there is a lack of story logic for the antagonists. Their reasons for being in the movie and for being Jason Bourne's antagonists are weak, and it doesn't make sense in the Bourne universe. Now, let's just have a think about the previous antagonists that Bourne has come up against. Bourne's antagonists in the previous three movies included Ward Abbott and Conklin in the Bourne Identity, and they needed to shut down Bourne because he was a rogue agent. He was a rogue assassin who had lost his memory, and their reason for trying to catch Bourne made sense because of the situation that they were in. In the second movie, The Bourne Supremacy, Pam Landy and Ward Abbott were both after Bourne, but for different reasons. Landy thought Bourne had killed some of her operatives when she was trying to buy the Penske files. But it was Abbott, her boss, who set Bourne up to take the blame and cover up a $20 million theft, which would have been revealed in those files. So there's a certain logic about that, and there's a certain empathy that we have for Pam Landy as an antagonist because she actually is trying to do what she thinks is the right thing. And it makes a really interesting conflict triangle. All right, and then we come to the Bourne ultimatum. So there's Vossen. He wants to eliminate Bourne to keep the CIA's whole Black Ops program from being revealed in the media. Now, another point, after you know all of this, that doesn't make sense in the movie Jason Bourne is the revelation that Bourne's father, Richard Webb, was the creator of the behaviour modification program that was the basis for Treadstone. In the Bourne ultimatum, Bourne gives Pam Landy the Blackbriar files, then she gives him his original name and birthday at the end of the Bourne ultimatum. Now, Bourne, if he wanted to, could have discovered quite a few things about his father with the information that Pam gave him. But he didn't do anything. Instead, he went underground for 12 years and earned a living street fighting. Then Nikki's discovery of Bourne's father's name in the Black Ops folders incites the whole movie. Bourne didn't want to know the information until Nikki found him. This makes no sense, especially when you consider the time lapse between when he got the information about his identity and when the actual Jason Bourne movie takes place. It just falls flat in so many ways. Now, in every movie, Bourne wants to find out who he was before the events in the Bourne identity. He is motivated to work out who he was, but 12 years go by and he doesn't find out anything. Again, it doesn't make any sense in the world of Jason Bourne. Now, in a series, you need to maintain the logic and the rules of the world you've established. There is nothing logical about a man who can operate off the grid and out of sight, waiting 12 years to find out about his father's murder, especially one that he witnessed. If he misses those clues, he shouldn't have been a candidate for a covert assassination program. So this movie undermines the premise for all of the other movies, in my opinion, that precede it. All right. Now, there is more that I could mention, but I need to stop now because you can probably tell that I'm quite excited about this. All right, Valerie, how did you go this week with the Jason Bourne?
Well, Melanie, and just to sort of riff off what you just said, in the very beginning of this movie, in a voiceover, Jason Bourne says, "I remember everything." Well, buddy, no, you don't.
No.
And the whole shtick of the Bourne movies is that he's trying to find out who he is and how he got to this point in his life, and that's the whole underlying premise of the Bourne movies. So absolutely, you're right, and I love the little callback you did to conflict triangles. We talked about that in a previous season. Can't remember which one off the top of my head, but that was really interesting. So if you don't know what we're talking about with conflict triangles, go back and check it out. All right. So Melanie, first of all, I just want to say yes to everything you just said. Now, I mean, I don't know the franchise as well as you do. I'm the first one to admit that. But when I watched this movie, it just didn't make sense to me. Just even as a standalone, and even just knowing what I do know about the franchise, the story logic didn't make sense. The characters' objects of desire and motivations didn't make sense. Now, here's the thing about story theory that we've got to remember. And listen, we're here every week talking about story theory because it honestly does make writing a book so much easier when you understand story theory. Like, I believe that right down to my socks. But story theory is not a tick the box exercise, right? Story theory explains the tools that we use in the storytelling trade, but we still have to learn how to use them in an artistic way. So here's what I mean by that. For example, it's not enough to say that Heather wants to bring Bourne in and Dewey wants him dead. Well, why? Why do they want those things? There has to be some reason, otherwise, they're sort of off the shelf baddies. And that's boring. That's really boring. Um, so, anyway, like Melanie, I could go on and on and on and on. But instead, I have decided to focus on one aspect of key theory. Um, one key aspect of theory that I think Jason Bourne runs foul of because it's really important for us to it's important for us to see how quickly it can go off the rails when we don't understand why it's a bit of theory in the first place, if that makes sense. Now, I encourage everyone to watch this movie because on the surface, it seems like it's working. It seems like it should be another great chapter in the Bourne franchise, right? It's got all the superficial bells and whistles that we expect from a Bourne movie. Unfortunately, the filmmakers forgot the substance. And by that, I mean they kind of forgot to include a plot. So it's a fascinating film to study. All right. Anyway, the topic I want to focus on today is this: patterns. When we're writing a story, what we want to do is avoid patterns. And the reason is super simple. When a reader, or in this case, a viewer, sees something once, that's fine. But when you repeat it verbatim or shot for shot in this case, your reader or viewer is going to know what's coming up because they saw it once. So they already know how the scene is going to unfold. And when your reader or viewer can accurately predict anything in your story, they're going to tune out, and they're going to tune out fast. And for novelists, it's already hard to get them to pick up the book in the first place because reading is labor intensive, right? It takes a lot more energy and intellectual energy and effort to read a novel than it does to sit on a couch and passively watch a film. Reading a novel is an active activity. Watching TV or a film is a passive activity. So, one, we got to get the person to pick up the book in the first place, right? That's all about the back cover blurb and the cover and the marketing bit. Once you get into the book itself, our job is to hook the reader early and hold their attention all the way to the last page. One of the things that will make a reader put a book down is when they see something coming and they know what's about to happen, and when it happens, it unfolds exactly the way they expect. One of the reasons this happens is because patterns are starting to form. Now, in certain stories, these things become kind of in jokes. Like if you have a character, like a comedic character, for example, who makes the same mistake over and over, that can be used to really um, powerful effect in the right hands. Or, for example, when Columbo always says, and one more thing, one more thing. We're waiting for that because we love those types of things. Those are personality traits. And when those types of things happen, it always goes toward the character and the depth of character and the dimension of the character. Here in Jason Bourne, what happens is that entire scenes are repeated exactly the same. So, listen, don't take my word for it. This is brain science. This is why I keep recommending that everyone get Lisa Cron's book Wired for Story, and don't just read it, study it. Read it many times. Write in the margins, highlight stuff, dog ear pages, take notes. It is so important because it's called Wired for Story because as humans, our brains are wired to receive story in a particular way. Like our brains work in a particular way. And so the answer to the question, well, why? Why are patterns bad? Or why is this bit of theory important? Or why does the antagonist have to have a motivation behind their action? It's because that's what makes sense to us. That's what we're looking for as humans. That's how we process stories. Anyway, so in Wired for Story, Lisa Cron writes this. Since the brain abhors randomness, it's always converting raw data into meaningful patterns, the better to anticipate what might happen next. That's a quote. So in story terms, quote, readers are always on the lookout for patterns. Now, to be fair, Cron is speaking there in terms of setups and payoffs, which I covered in another season, but believe it or not, the same is true with scene types. Now, what, says you, is a scene type? Fair enough. Because this scene types are advanced. So I haven't gotten into them here on the podcast because I don't know how to do it justice in an audio thing. Like this, it's the kind of thing I get into when I'm working with clients one on one, because then we can really dive into it and I can explain it and answer questions and all that kind of stuff. So to be fair, this is a bit of an advanced idea. I've got a whole training on it. It's called the Scene Type Inventory. I gave it live a couple of years ago, and I will be re-releasing it soon. So if this is something you're interested in, get on my mailing list, valeriefrancis.ca/inner circle, because you'll hear about it there first. And the people on my mailing list, they always get first access to things. They get discounts, they get special offers that I don't advertise anywhere else. So if scene types float your boat, go to valeriefrancis.ca/inner circle. All right. Now, scene types in and of themselves, like every other bit of story theory, and every single literary device, everything to do with our craft, it's neither good nor bad. It is what it is. It's all about how you use the tool, okay? That's why Melanie and I are here every week. We're showing you how to use these tools. When you understand how to use scene types or any other storytelling tool, now suddenly you have power. Power as a storyteller to craft a really beautiful tale that is going to, like I said earlier, grab a reader on page one and hold their attention all the way to the last page. The flip side of that, of course, is when they're used poorly, that they can and will ruin your book, or in this case, the film. So what do I mean by that? Well, okay, let's look specifically at Jason Bourne. In fairness, the first 15 minutes or so aren't bad at all with respect to scene types. Yes, it's full of scenes and scene types that we have seen dozens of times before in other stories, but this is the first time we're seeing them in this particular movie. So the audience just happily goes along with it. Uh, like we see Jason Bourne fighting. Oh, yeah, we've seen that kind of fight a million times. No biggie. We just go with it. The types, the scene types that happen over and over and over again in this movie, though, are fight scenes, car chase scenes, cyber scenes, or what I call people on computers scenes, crowd scenes, debrief scenes, and walk and talks. Now, these are all fine in and of themselves. They can all be used. They can all be used different ways in a story. And the audience, the reader or viewer, probably won't notice. They stick out so badly here in Jason Bourne because they're repeated exactly shot for shot, almost over and over and over. So it gets boring, right? We've there's no variation. We saw it once, and then we see it a second time and a third time, and you know, guess what that's called? That's called a pattern. And what happens to our brains when we see these patterns? We tune out. We just check out. We know how it's going to go. It's no longer interesting to us because we understand how the pattern works. Um, and the way that Jason Bourne uses patterns is they're actually duplicating it, right? So there's no variation on a theme. Let me just give you one example from the movie. And then I invite you to watch the movie and find other examples because there's loads of them. But the one example I want to give you is the crowd scene. So whenever Jason rises his head above the parapet, he does it in a crowd scene. So the first time is when he meets Nikki during the demonstration scene in Rome. The idea is that there are so many other people and so much chaos going on around that he can just get lost in the crowd. He blends in with the flow of people. Heather is trying to track him with her cyber skills, and the asset moves to a fixed location where he can take a shot at Bourne. Both the asset and Heather fail. And what's worse, what's what's worse, in my opinion, is that Matt Damon, as an acting choice, I guess, maybe he was directed to do it this way. I really don't know. So that's not a fair criticism. But the end result is that the delivery by Matt Damon in every single crowd scene is exactly the same. He is walking in exactly the same pace in every scene. And you know what? Whenever the camera cuts to the asset is also walking at that exact pace. The camera is in the same spot every time. So Bourne approaches from the crowd, walks past the camera, and then keeps going, and we see his back. It's the same shot every time. The second time we see this crowd scene is in Paddington Plaza in London when Bourne asks to meet Smith. Right? Same MO. It's not a demonstration this time. What Bourne does is set off the fire alarms in all the buildings around the plaza. So you have the same effect where suddenly there's this huge number of people flooding the plaza and Bourne can get lost in the crowd. The crowd makes it a little harder for Heather to track him, But she is using, again, her cyber skills to track him. And again, we have the asset moving to a fixed location to get a shot at Bourne. And again, we have both of them failing, right? So already this is boring because we saw all of this just happen. Now, you might argue that 2 times doesn't constitute a pattern. Fair enough. Let me give you a third example. And there are more. I've just got tired of talking about it. So I'm just going to give you the, the third one. This is at the Deep Dream event, just closer toward the end of the film. Bourne is moving through crowds of these conference attendees. There's loads of tech involved here. Cell phones, tracers placed in pockets, all that kind of stuff. Heather is still using tech to bring Bourne in, and you guessed it, the asset is still moving to a fixed location so he can get a shot at Bourne. And yes, you guessed it, both of them fail again. It's exactly the same scene. I mean, there's others, you get the idea. And I'm bored now. So, Melanie, with respect to Jason Bourne, what's the bottom line here in your opinion about what the heck went wrong? Because it
Oh,
certainly wasn't a budget problem because they had a big budget for this movie.
they
They
did.
had to.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it only got about 50% on Rotten Tomatoes as well. So it did not get the favorable ratings that the 3 previous Jason Bourne movies have received. So audiences knew that there were things that were wrong with it as well, right? And they're lovers
100%.
of the franchise. But I think, if I was to summarize it again, the movie doesn't work because it does not maintain the story logic established in the first 3 movies. So this movie bumbles all the small details as well as the big ones. And again, I say it, if you are writing a series, there are plenty of lessons to learn from this movie about what not to do. But I think you really need to understand that you shouldn't break the rules of the world that you've established unless you have a very good reason. And Jason Bourne did not put up a very good reason to break the story logic that had been established. What are your biggest takeaways from this?
You know, I get asked this question a lot from writers and from clients. Why can't I repeat something? I want to repeat it to draw attention to it, to emphasize it because it's important to the plot. Well, the reason is that if you repeat something exactly, you lose your reader's interest. That's not my opinion. That's brain science. That's just how we're wired. And if you want to see a really great example of what happens, watch Jason Bourne and pay attention to your own reaction to the story. When are you looking at your watch? When are you getting up and going to the bathroom and telling the people you're watching the movie with, don't bother pausing it? Let me know what happens. When are you picking up your phone and checking to see if you have any messages? When are you guessing what's going to happen and it actually happens? Like really pay attention to you as a viewer watching this movie and when your interest wanes and when your interest picks up. Like they use music a lot in this movie as a way of trying to create tension. The soundtrack, even if it's a great one, can't create the tension. It can only enhance the tension that is already in the script, or in our case, we don't have a soundtrack in novels anyway. We just have black text on a white page. That's all we got, baby. So, we really cannot afford to lose our reader anywhere. So, if you ever wondered why patterns were important and how you can use them to your advantage and how they can really work to your disadvantage, definitely check out Jason Bourne. Okay, that wraps it up for this week. We would love to hear what you think of this What Went Wrong episode. And of course, if there's a film that you'd like us to take a look at, feel free to reach out to us via email or social media. Next week, we have our What Went Right episode. So come and join us as we discuss Vertigo. I'm excited for this one. To support the show, please leave us a rating and review and tell your writer friends about us. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want us to review your query letter and first 10 pages writing sample, go to storynerd.ca for all the details about how to submit. To join my inner circle, go to valeriefrancis.ca/inner circle. And for more information about Melanie's books, visit melaniehill.au. And remember, story theory doesn't have to be difficult. It's a tool to help you write more, not less. So take it one step at a time, and remember to have lots of fun.